Edna Timmy Schubert was retired from the Department of Motor Vehicles, and she was 88 years old. Known as the neighborhood grandma, Edna was so sweet, she was kind, and she was charming. But on the morning of Friday, December 12, 2003, Miss Edna would be found in a horrific manner. As residents on Frederick Avenue start their normal Friday, sending kids off to school, headed to work, one of the neighbors happened to see something that's just not right. Edna's front door stood wide open. With 30 to 40-degree weather on a December day in New York, this would not be normal for an 88-year-old fragile woman. As the neighbor makes their way up the driveway, they notice that her side kitchen window is also shattered. Thinking to themselves, something has to be wrong. Yelling for Edna and entering the home, the neighbors look around the living room. Everything looks normal. The only thing out of place is the kitchen light on. Was it on from the night before or earlier that morning? Telling themselves she has to be here, they make way into Edna's bedroom. Lying in a pool of blood beyond recognition is deceased 88-year-old Edna Timmy Schubert. As police officers arrive on scene, this is when detectives were notified and began their investigation. An absence of stolen items ruled out the possibility of burglary. Her purse was left behind along with jewelry and other items that would have been valuable for a burglar, or in other words, a thief. This was a senseless act of violence from a monster. The only evidence left behind from the killer was a smudge fingerprint left on the kitchen window sill. When the autopsy came back, it showed that Edna's cause of death was blunt force trauma. The extensive facial fractures and severe damage to her sternum, ribs, thyroid bone, and thyroid cartilage left the coroner without knowing what weapon had been used to savagely beat Edna to death. In 2023, 2 decades after the crime, a detective that could never stop thinking about this case made a call that changed everything. He asked a simple question: can we take another look at the evidence? Homicide Detective Brendan O'Hara took over the case, teaming up with retired fingerprint expert Timothy Kelly. Together, they re-examined fingerprints taken from the crime scene, prints that had gone unlinked for years. This time, they found their match: raw Ayala, then a neighbor who lived around the corner from Schubert. Now that Ayala was on their radar, detectives went even further. Investigators revisited previously untested blood evidence found on Schubert's pantyhose and white long-sleeve shirt. The advanced DNA testing revealed something new: a mixture of Schubert's blood and DNA from an unknown male. Police had a strong suspicion on who that male DNA belonged to and digged into Ayala's past. Through doing this, they discovered that Ayala had left Long Island and moved to Talmo, Georgia, in August 2024. Members of the Suffolk County Police Department traveled to Georgia to track Ayala and collect fresh DNA evidence without tipping him off. It didn't take long until detectives watched as Ayala casually tossed out a few items, scratch-off tickets, and plastic bottles. That trash that meant nothing to him was about to seal his fate. The discarded items were rushed back to New York for forensic analysis, and when the results came in, there was no doubt the DNA from one of the bottles matched the DNA found on Schubert's clothing. With irrefutable evidence in hand, police moved in on Ayala. On January 16, 2025, Ayala was arrested in Georgia with help from local law enforcement. After 2 decades of living free, he was taken into custody and extradited back to Suffolk County. On February 7, 2025, Ayala stood before Acting Supreme Court Justice Richard I. Horowitz for his arraignment. He has been charged with first-degree murder, Class A felony, and 2 counts of murder, second-degree, Class A felonies. If convicted, he could face life in prison without the possibility of parole.